Good morning from the Aloha State, Hawaii. It's moving on about 12 o'clock Hawaiian Standard Time out there. The primary is just about over, but not over. There are roughly 20,000 plus votes to be counted. As of yet, they've put out 4 different data sets tonight. And after 12, or as soon as they can, they will come out with more data sets. Nonetheless, in the Senate race, that's the one left to be called. Schatz has 105,798 votes. Hanabusa has 104,010 votes at this count. But remember, there are thousands of votes to still be counted out there. The sitting governor lost the primary, Abercrombie, to Igu. I hope I'm still not mispronounced his name, who ran a grassroots campaign the same as Colleen Hanabusa. She also ran a grassroots campaign against Schatz. She was outspent more than 2-1. And you will hear from them in other parts, the part that precedes us here, courtesy of KHON News 2 out of Honolulu. They've been reporting all night, and we've been following it, so you will get an edited version there. There are roughly about 8,000 registered voters on Puma because of the storm. Remember, they had 2 hurricanes coming through there at the same time. So on Puma, they do not have electricity there. So they, unless they are listening by battery, they have not got the results, and you will get it before they will get it. But according to this, at least 158,000 people voted absentee, but only about 39,000 have been counted. So that leaves about 18,000 out there to be counted. And this race is under 2,000, the Senate race that is. It won't matter in the governor's race. He was a victim of a landslide, that is Governor Abercrombie. He had been in politics in Hawaii for 40 years, a native New Yorker. And he will be, as they say, retired. He's 74 years old. He is the Hawaiian politician that saw the baby Barack Obama in his baby crib. That would make sense because he is basically 21 years older than President Obama. And it's interesting how politics played in this. And I tell people that politics has strange bedfellows. Check out our presentation on Watergate. It's called Watergate with or without social media. Today we have social media. Of course, we have been tweeting all night long out information in Hawaii, the primary out there, to get the feed out on our feed, and then put some stuff on Facebook about this so people will get this. The reason this is important is this is one of 2 states. President Obama, of course, is from Hawaii, and his new domicile being the state of Illinois. The governor there is not as in bad shape as Abercrombie was out in Hawaii, but he's not in the best of shape either. So those are 2 states we'll be watching in terms of gubernatorial races, and they do matter because a governor and a legislature draw the voting districts. And as happened in Texas on the little Tommy DeLay, he was able to influence the voting districts in Texas in such a way to gerrymander the Democrats out legally and put the Republicans, including Governor Perry and his rock, in power there in the state of Texas and in their legislature there. So that does matter, and you see various other states by using ALEC. That's sort of a cookie-cutter pattern for legislation sponsored by the infamous Koch brothers, formerly of Wichita, Kansas, now Palm Springs and Palm Springs, California, and Palm Beach, Florida. They have put millions into various right-wing think tanks, other things to literally sabotage the right, suppress the right to vote. Many states have now all of a sudden came up with voter ID laws that never had voter ID laws. As close as we get to that was the poll tax and literacy tests. Former justice, now dead, fortunately named Rehnquist, used to administer those out in Arizona and have people read the Declaration of Independence if they were African Americans. Very few Latinos in Arizona were voting at that time. But the whole point was this. He did not administer those to Caucasian people. Well, I've had trouble with that word lately. In Hawaii, there were some polls there. One had Colleen Hanabusa up by 8. One had Schatz up by 8. Depend on who they talked to out there. The outer islands have been friendly to her, and it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Those are the votes out there. They could well decide this. And according to one of the reporters there, talking about trends, well, we had the early vote. Representative Hanabusa was ahead because of early voting. Those are generally older people, etc. That's according to Schatz, his campaign manager. And then he started to move ahead when younger people were incorporated in other people. But he was getting most of the highly vote. Those are the white vote. There's no doubt about that. And Colleen Hanabusa was getting the Japanese vote and the Asian vote, and we'll have to see how many of the Native Hawaiians. That's an interesting situation in Hawaii. I used to date a Native Hawaiian, and she explained to me the mixtures of various ethnic groups there, the Native Hawaiians, various Asian subset groups, Filipinos, etc., and how they all compete in this mosaic. The late great Senator Inouye was a master at that. He just basically had on his thing Dan whatever it was, and that was his slogan. People voted for him, and literally he died in office. And he had, Colleen Hanabusa had said that he promised her he'd be there forever. He did on his deathbed ask that she be appointed. Abercrombie appointed Schatz, and the people spoke and sent Abercrombie, as they say, to an aloha situation. So he's out of the game. One of the commentators from Nate Silver's shop said it was a miracle since the landslide went against Abercrombie, but Schatz was still in the game. But one has to understand, and Hibiscus talked about that, money spent in this particular election was 2-1, probably 3-1. The Washington people, including President Obama, leading, as they say, the parade, and Harry Reid and various other fixtures in Washington were no doubt behind him. Part of the rationale there was that they wanted to ensure, I think he's in his early 40s, late 30s, the seat would be theirs, well, not time immemorial, but the next 20 years at least. But it goes beyond that, the internal mechanism of the party out in Hawaii, some of the trade union organizations. We had Move On in there, some of the progressive organizations there also, to cast Hibiscus as more conservative than she actually is. An unfortunate situation. From the outset, we supported Colleen Hibiscus because of the carrying of the torch from Senator Inouye and his championship for all the people of Hawaii. Since I recall, I'm old enough to remember when they became a state in the late 50s. But this is a situation that they have to fight it out. Who will win this? Very difficult to say. One could go with the trends, so to speak. But if you did go with the trends, providing the trends are correct, I believe dataset 1, dataset 2, and even in dataset 3, they got down to like 10 or 12 votes. But in the fourth, let me make sure I got this right. The fourth data set there, or the third data set, I guess, Schatz was ahead, and in the last one it tightened, but only by 20 votes. That's not a tightening. But if these early votes are still there, now there were some also people outside of those islands that mailed in stuff, military people, etc., that mailed in, but they feel that they have those votes counted out there. So we'll have to see on that one as to how that turns out. We'll be with the Monday morning quarterback, where we'll talk about this particular race, quarterback it, and what is going on in northern Iraq, around Tabil, that is in the Kurdish autonomous region, they call it, chasing the Islamic forces. They used to be called ISIS. They've now changed their name to the Islamic forces, or whatever, they new name every day for the group. But some U.S. planes bombed a convoy. Evidently what they did was basically commandeer some U.S. military equipment left over, so they were in the trademark Humvees. They had 3 or 4 of them. Not much of a ragtag army, but evidently they have the dam that does the water supply in the area outside of Mosul. Mosul, of course, these are Sunni areas that the late Saddam Hussein controlled all around Mosul and etc., in that he was from Tikrit. But those machination goes on, and President Obama, speaking from the White House on his way to Martha Vineyard for his holiday, basically said this is a long engagement. So in other words, he'll call out drones and planes as needed, and other remedies. And what do we mean by remedies? We can read the sleight of hand there. There'll probably be more American advisors, etc., to prop up this paper tiger regime that they have in Baghdad. Is not much of a regime there. At the same time, the right wingers are critical of him, but they give him some credit for dropping some bombs. But the whole problem is you have to have much more of a foreign policy than dropping bombs. They'd like to revisit the place, but the problem is, how many troops do they send? 5,000, 10,000, 20,000? It's like an auction. And how long do you keep them there? Indefinitely? 1 year, 5 years, 20 years? The same stability is in the DNA of Iraq. And that you cannot go against, you cannot reshape that. Nonetheless, this is a special report on the 2014 Democratic primary out in Hawaii. Incidentally, the House seat there, forget who the Democratic nominee is, but the standard bearer that once was there, Charles Dejoux, I'll get him right in a minute here. Anyway, nonetheless, Mr. Dejoux is running again. He was appointed by the Republican governor. He was there for 7 months, and now he's running for a full 2-year term. That'll be interesting to see how that is decided in Hawaii. The Democrats later today or tomorrow, they are around midnight or after midnight, will have their unity thing, but they will not have decided the Senate race. And that'll be an interesting situation, because the person that is the winner in 2 years will return again in a presidential year to stand for election for a 6-year term. So this is sort of, as they say, the beast of politics. Out incidentally in Montana, Walsh has quitted there. They don't have a replacement for him. They have 10 days, 20th, I believe, to decide where. He was behind 10 points anyway. And the one person that could have carried the ball for them, the former governor, says he's out of the game. Switzer, his name is Switzer. Anyway, whatever his name is, he's not getting in the race. So I guess the thing out in Montana, another distant place, is nobody really wants to get in the race except the second and third string. Aloha, hit it right in the morning. It's 10 to 6 Eastern Time. Incidentally, the Sox played a beautiful game tonight. They lost it out in Orange County with the Angels. They went 19 innings. Being a baseball fan is our type of a game, and I guess I would be remiss not giving the baseball scores here from last night. I don't have a chance to give these much. We will give them on the Monday morning quarterback, however. But we can give them here. We have some time to do it. And we shall very quickly give the lineup for anybody who wants to know. And no doubt we had some history being made. The Cleveland team was in New York. They shut out the Yankees 3-0. The Rays, one other game, were in Wrigley Field. Rays 4, Cubbies blanco. The Cardinals were in Baltimore. Orioles 10, Cardinals 3. The Dodgers were in Milwaukee. Brewers 4, Dodgers 1. And Dodgers have been losing quite a few games lately. The Giants were in Kansas City. Kansas City 5, Giants 0. The Nationals pulled it out in 11 over the Atlanta team 4-1. The Red Sox in 19 lost to the Angels 5-4. Let's give you a little bit of the line score here. The Sox had 6 hits. The Angels had 5 runs, 15 hits, and 2 errors, and still won the game in 19. The longest game ever played in the Angels stadium. The longest game that the Sox played this year, over 6 hours. A few 6-hour games this year. Nonetheless, the Mets were in Philadelphia. Mets 2, Phillies 1. And the Twins were out in Oakland. Oakland 9, Twins 4. The Rockies were in Arizona and wished they would stay home. D-backs 14, Rockies 4. In the White Sox of Chicago in 10, out in Seattle. Sox 2, Mariners 1. I guess you say President Obama, that's his team. He got 1 and possibly 2 tonight, depending on what Schatz does or Schatz doesn't do. But the granddaddy, as they say, of Hawaiian politics, Mr. Abercrombie, has been retired. There's no doubt about that. Aloha. Finally. Good morning.
And so it's a little disheartening that the folks didn't see the passion that the governor has misinterpreted. So we really feel that the governor's not being given credit for all the good things that he and his cabinet have done.
From a land preservation point of view, from a resources preservation point of view, and of course our ocean, which is dear to you and I, a lot of good things have happened during his administration.
We've done some fantastic things. We have rules in place. We're going to community-based management. We have rainfall with the forest initiatives. We're working on partnering with Department of Agriculture on invasive species. We are the leader in the nation right now in climate change adaptation. So we have many things to be proud of, and we hope that it'll show in the third printout.
If it doesn't, what's the message for the next administration if the third printout continues with this trend?
Well, I think any administration has to do what it thinks is correct and move forward with the best interests of the people, and I believe that that's what Governor Neil Abercrombie has done.
Well, Bill, I'm going to say this publicly, and I might get in trouble for this. If the governor wins in the second term, I wish you stay on the job. Whoever takes the job the next, I hope they consider you as a position. Bill, thank you very much for your time. All right, Bill Lila, DLNR Director, again, hopeful that that third printout will turn it around. But truthfully, Joe, the tone here, the vibe here is they understand that this one is coming to an end. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Ron. Let's go back to Gina Mangieri now at the state capitol. Gina?
I do have that answer now about what will we get in this 9 o'clock report. A lot. We're going to have about 80,000 new votes. We've put up some numbers here for you. About 80,000 new votes. It'll be 165 total precincts at that point, out of 245 that are going to report. But now, because so many were walk-in voting, that'll bring up to it'll probably be about 2/3 of all votes cast by the time we see the 9 p.m. So we had about 118, add another 80, we're almost to 200,000, and only 300,000 voted in the last primary. So unless our turnout really went up, which of course we all hope for, But if the trends hold the same as last time, this will give us a 2/3 look at what the trends might be. Again, 165 total precincts and 80,000 new votes in the 9 p.m. I did ask, how does that divide up between the neighbor islands versus Oahu? And they did not yet have that analysis. We will get that for you very quickly after we have the 9 p.m. results. So we continue to look for that latest. It's not yet posted here, but as soon as our media link comes up, we're going to wave you down and get those results right on to you. And that'll be quite a sample size, about a 2/3 sample size, and it will really have a good sense of if that's going to make a difference in any of these close races. Now, we talked about those couple of polling places that are closed. That is about 2,500 people who voted in person in the primary last time from those districts. So if history is any tell, out of those 8,200 or so registered voters on those Big Island districts who can be the decider, where it says we're up. And we are looking at numbers. They have just hit fire off for us. What do you see there, Emmy? We're getting the numbers here shortly. The 0.5% for Neil Abercrombie, 66.5, David Ige to 30.5. How about on the U.S. Senate, Emmy? 48.2 Hanabusa on Senate, and
also 48.2.
And 48.2 for Brian Schatz. This 9 o'clock has Brian Schatz and Colleen Hanabusa in a tie. Emmy, is that correct? She's getting us the exact number. And thank you, Emmy, very much. We have 80,365 for Colleen Hanabusa, 80,354 for Brian Schatz. This will be coming up on your screen as well. And we'll get the full results from other races as we can. David Ige's lead is clearly still way in advance, and this has pulled within 11 votes of each other, Colleen Hanabusa to Brian Schatz. Joe, back to you.
Those numbers just came out, and there was a scream in the room, closer now. I'm joined by Ken Inoue, the son of late Senator Daniel Inoue, and you said it ain't over till it's over.
Absolutely. But, we are here for the long haul tonight, and I'm still cautiously optimistic.
And as each printout comes out and is released, it seems like the gap is getting tighter and tighter. Is that a bit concerning?
I'll be honest with you. Maybe it's just my nature, and maybe it's just because I've watched a number of these kind of races before in a number of different venues. I kind of expected it to be a pretty tight race from the get-go. We're in it for the long haul. I'm still cautiously optimistic and encouraged. I've been hearing great things from folks who have been out in the field today, in their get out the vote efforts. So I think we're all in for a very long night.
Indeed, and you came from the mainland a week and a half ago to help campaign. What have you been telling people about the Congresswoman?
Well, I've been telling them a couple of things. I've been telling them, first off, I feel that she has what it takes to be a great United States Senator. She has the talent.
Folks who were supporting our campaign, to tell them that all of you and all of them and all of Hawaii at the time, so you may not have heard the point that I wanted to make in conjunction with coming here to pledge my support for David. And it was that this lei is a lei given to me by my Hanai mom, Auntie Cope of Plumeria and crown flowers. And I'm sure everyone here knows that the crown flower was the flower of the Queen, the favorite flower of the Queen. And the Queen's admonition to all of us was onipa'a, steadfast. And that's what the Democratic Party is all about. We're onipa'a, we're steadfast, we're for David Ige for governor.
And may I say that I am so honored to hold the hand of the next First Lady, who is a beautiful, compassionate, wonderful person.
Oh, thank you, John. Mahalo, John. Thank you. And the other point I just wanted to make, And by the way, we'll be meeting tomorrow morning. I know because of the tropical hurricane that became the tropical storm. You see how well organized we were? We made the hurricane into a tropical storm. I indicated. I understand that we will not be necessarily having our unity breakfast everywhere all at once, but we'll be there tomorrow morning, at least on the island of Oahu. And so all the Democrats will be getting together tomorrow there. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize to them, as I did to those who were supporting us in this election, is that this brings to a close 40 years of commitment on my part. Thank you. You're very kind. You're kind. Thank you. And what I really meant by that was it was 40 years ago now that I got the first opportunity to serve. People gave me that trust and put their faith in casting a vote 40 years ago, and I indicated I was a lecturer at the community college, which was a kind of an extension. I came, for those who might not know, to Hawaii, to the University of Hawaii in 1959. And so over all that length of time, I had that commitment to education, which motivated me to run in the first place. And so when I got down to the floor of the House of Representatives, of course, I wanted to get my commitment in there, and I thought, well, I need two things. I'm a lecturer at the University of Hawaii's Leeward Community College campus. Therefore, my first question was, when do I get paid? That hasn't changed much for the lecturers. That we're going to work on that. But my second question was, where was my office? And so, because I thought, it's not real till I can actually see my name on the office door. Then I'll know it's really there. Where's my office? Clerk told me where. I went upstairs. The janitor helped me. My friend Bernard helped me to find it. And there it was. There was my name on the door. The only thing was, the name slid off the door. It wasn't bolted on. It wasn't painted on. It wasn't nailed on. And that's when I realized something that has stayed with me these entire 40 years. It wasn't my office. It's your office. And you have made a decision tonight. The Democratic Party has made a decision tonight. The governor's office is the office of the people of Hawaii, and I'm going to do everything I can to see that David Ige occupies that office for all of the people of Hawaii. Thank you very much. Mahalo nui.
76-year-old Neil Abercrombie, perhaps his
Pahoa, the people who are still in recovery may not be even able to watch returns or think about an election because they're thinking about how they're going to survive. And so all of our hearts are with the people of the Big Island. There are a number of organizations that I want to thank. I want to thank organized labor generally, but I want to thank HGEA and Randy Pereira in particular. I want to thank people who care deeply about protecting our natural environment. But I want to thank the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters in particular. I want to thank everybody who cares about protecting and enhancing Social Security. But I also want to thank Move On and the Progressive Campaign Change Committee in particular. And
much. No, thank you. What are your thoughts? You know, I've heard the phrase nail biters and things like that, but this is truly an election that we probably have not seen in a very long time, one that's statewide, one that has major consequences. But like I said earlier, the most interesting part of it, though, is it tells everyone that the neighbor islands are going to determine the outcome. And, you know, some of my neighbor island supporters said that the mantra that they say is that
we matter. And this is truly a situation where it's going to come down to how the neighbor island decides to vote. And more importantly than that, it's going to come down primarily, I think, to two districts that are going to be able to know what the results are here, everywhere else in the state, and then make a decision. So, like I told our supporters here, it isn't over yet. No one can call this election because we've got two precincts that are not only out, they haven't even been voted yet.
But does it give you more confidence knowing that those precincts are on the neighbor islands where your support is very strong?
Yes, it does. It does. But it's really more a matter of what it tells you as a candidate is how important a support base is and how important it is to touch the people and to be there and then to make everyone understand what you stand for and why you would be the best advocate for them and why they should support you. So it makes that so very real. I can say I was in the district. I was actually in Pahala about a week or so ago. So it's a very good feeling to know that we and they make a difference, and that this election is a clear statement. Clear statement. We're not the incumbent. We've been outraised in terms of money, almost 2-to-1, outspent. We've had all the mainland influence coming in. We've had some negative hit pieces at the very end. We've had YouTube videos come out at the end. We've had all the variety of different things that happen. And, Brian was up 2 months without us being up in terms of media. So when you put all of that together, you can see how the grassroots campaign that we ran and is amazing, because I credit that all to our supporters and our grassroots efforts and our volunteers, that really did make a difference. It made up a huge, almost $2 million deficit. It made up a situation where they went around saying they were up 17 points in a poll, or they're up 12, or they're up, all this thing. And then to hear them tonight say, oh, it's always been a close race. It was never admitted to be a close race, but it is a close race thanks to the efforts of the volunteers and the people of the state of Hawaii. They're making a clear statement.
Are you surprised then with the numbers or not?
I was surprised that it came down to the closeness that it did. I always thought it would be a close race, but this is more than close, especially with 3 precincts still out to be counted and 2 which you're not going to count anytime soon. So this is an election that cannot and has not been called.
You got a little emotional on the stage a little earlier.
One thing that we all know, and I think Senator Hirono said it well, is that you know that it's the volunteers, and you know that it's them who do this. When you think about that, the people who support you and the volunteers, especially those who come to the headquarters on a daily basis, stuffing envelopes, doing whatever you ask them to do, they don't get anything out of it. They just believe in you. So when you look upon them and you see all of them who believe in you, and that's the reason why they're here, you can't help but feel how fortunate you are to have their support.
And if the late Senator Dan Inouye was here, what do you think he would be telling you after seeing those numbers?
Well, first of all, if Senator was here, we wouldn't be in this situation because Senator promised me he would serve forever. So we would not be in this situation. But I think Senator was somebody who always would say, it ain't over till it's over. And that's exactly what we feel in this election. It ain't over till it's over. And it's going to be a while before this election is over.
All right. Thank you very much, Congresswoman Hanabusa, for joining us tonight. We're going to send it back to you in the studio.
Florida vote in 2000.
What Charles DeJoux, who's a movie buff, reminded me of a movie called Swing Vote. We were just talking about that, where Dennis Hopper and Kelsey Grammer came down. There was one vote, and it was Kevin Costner, and they lobbied. Well, if you're Brian Schatz and Colleen Hanabusa, are you flying over to Puna? Are you sitting down with almost every one of those potential votes?
Absolutely, and this isn't out of the question. It's a little bit of hyperbole, but when you look at the presidential primaries and the caucuses in Iowa or New Hampshire, these people get a lot of individual attention. and this is a much smaller, concentrated situation, I'm sure these campaigns have their phone numbers by now.
And it's so interesting to think that these people, who, God bless them, right now they don't even have electricity, they're not even able to follow this election. They now have one of the biggest congressional races. They're really going to be the ones that are going to tip the scales in one direction or another.
And we know that they usually don't vote significantly. I think that will be a little different this time when they realize they may, depending on our 11 o'clock printout, decide this election.
Absolutely. Although it may take days, possibly a couple of weeks. Let's go back now to the gubernatorial primary where David Ige was 67% of the vote over Neil Abercrombie. Your thoughts on that?
Well, we saw a significant spread in the final polls, and this is like double that spread. We know from the polling data that a lot of people voted for Ige because they did not like Neil. Interestingly enough, in the election before that, a lot of people voted for Neil because they did not like Mufi. So it seems like for governor, we don't vote for somebody, we vote against somebody.
We've got numbers coming in. Let's go to Gina Mangieri at the Capitol. Sorry to interrupt, fellas. We have the latest numbers. Gina?
98. Brian Schatz in the lead, 105,798. Colleen Hanabusa, 104,010. Again, Brian Schatz in the lead over Colleen Hanabusa by, we're getting that margin crunched here for you. Now, this is another 11,000 voters came in for this report. So that's all that's left is probably about another 20 or 30,000 absentee mail. They're not quite sure. That's now a margin of 1,788. A margin of 1,788 votes. Brian Schatz leading. That margin has tightened since the last one. More voters are in, but the margin is slightly tighter once again. Joe, while we'll go back to you, I'll take a look and start analyzing island by island to get you some specifics. Joe, back to you.
All right, thanks, Gina. Let's go to Diane Acco, who has Brian Schatz standing by. Diane?
Hi, Joe. It is kind of chaos over here because when the last set of numbers came out, not the ones that Gina just reported, people were so excited and you know, the candidate had just come out and was talking to his supporters. Actually, right now they're trying to figure out what.
By, I think, 10 or 20 votes, so it's basically the same, and that's basically everything, if I'm not mistaken, except for the two Puna precincts. And so we feel great. We feel very pleased and thankful for all the support across the state. Obviously, nobody could have conceived an election like this, either in terms of the closeness or in terms of the hurricane hitting the Big Island and the real challenges that people on the Big Island are going through right now. And that's, I think, what has to be first in all of our minds. But also, I mean, that second printout, I run for the state legislature. I've never seen a printout. 11 votes is a little unheard of. And so this is really a close race. But we're happy that we have a good lead with very, very few votes remaining to be counted.
Such a roller coaster ride. Has your heart gone up and down?
Yeah, what was interesting is I started to calm down once the results came in. Even when they were not favorable to me, I started to find a sort of peaceful place. Linda and I were in different parts of the house because Tyler and Mia had questions, and I was not capable of answering questions and monitoring the results. So they were in different parts of the house, and when
that at least 158,000 people voted absentee. That's how many people walked in or mailed in as of the last count, and that was earlier this morning. So more mail could have arrived today. More people could have dropped off absentee at these polling places. All of that still counts in early voting. So that number was at least 158,000 cast. Only 139,000 have been counted as of this 11 o'clock. So right there, that's 20,000 absentee or early votes still to be counted. 20,000 more. All precincts are counted in this 11 o'clock report, all precincts, except, of course, the two on the Big Island, 8,200 registered voters, probably a couple thousand of them are somewhere in that early voting number. So let's say up to a little over 6,000 unvoted votes in those Big Island polling places still yet to come. So 20,000 or so absentee not yet counted, and 6,000 or so not yet voted. Joe, back to you.
All right, thanks, Gina. So that.
Howdy, Joe. Thank you much. Great question to ask of Gene and a great answer that really broke it down. So you have, as she said, 20,000 still to be counted absentee votes. That's really a game changer in a sense. And true to what Brian Schatz said, sensitive to the people over there in the Pune district who right now, their greatest concern is not this election. These are people who were standing in lines today, hundreds of people, long lines, just to get a scoop or two of ice for a cooler. I mean, that really puts a lot of things into perspective.
If a senatorial candidate knocks on the door in Pune in the next 2 weeks, they never better be bringing a bag of ice with them.
No kidding. Right now, they may not even want to answer the door, and the question is, could these candidates even get to these homes? Because as we saw, neighbors are helping neighbors physically, cutting down these fallen albizia trees, among others. So let's go back to that. You were talking a little bit about the demographic makeup and looking at some of the polls that have been taking place over the last couple of weeks, and that was kind of reflected in a couple of these first printouts regarding this Hanabusa-Schatz race.
Right. You had two major public polls we were looking at, a ward poll which had Hanabusa ahead by 8%. And then you had a Merriman poll done a little bit earlier that was the other way by 8%. What's the variance in those two polls? The major variance was the Merriman poll polled proportionally more Caucasian voters than AJAs were polled in the ward poll. What does that mean? It means simply that Caucasians were more likely to vote for Schatz, and AJAs, Americans of Japanese ancestry, were more likely to vote for Hanabusa. So the major question then would be, of these votes that are left in Pune and the 20,000 absentees, what's your demographic breakdown?
Right, that ethnic difference could really swing this election completely one way or another.
Absolutely. And if you look at the first printout, remember, that contained a lot of absentee votes. And as I recall, that first printout went slightly Hanabusa. So her people have to be happy about that, but this is still way close to call.
Two of the other races that we expected to be relatively close, not so much. Clayton He taken.
Absolutely correct. We've had the final printout for the night, right, Gina?
This is the 11 o'clock printout for tonight. We're trying to get an answer as to whether there will be a midnight or not. We'll swing our camera over here, and let's see what Scott has to tell us. Here, I'm going to find out right now. Gentlemen, will there be a midnight? We're on live. Will there be a midnight posting, or what will the next results be?
Well, look, we're just trying to finish the results. So we're not going to stop it at midnight. We're just going to run it through and when we finish, we'll give you guys ample time for our next report. But we're going to try and just power through and finish it.
Okay. And in the past, there have been sort of middle of the night or middle of the morning reports. Is that what it looks like at this point, or?
There's no way to tell, but we're just going to try to finish it out. That's all I can say.
So you can't, it won't be by midnight? Or you
No,
can't
if we
say?
do a midnight report, we're not going to close it out.
The process of making these reports slows down the tabulation.
Okay, we're just going to try and finish it for you guys.
Okay, will there be any more outstanding of those, or do we know how many, like, overseas?
That's in the mail.
Yeah, that's
in the mail.
So that's already been counted?
Everything that's in our possession.
Counted or in the process of being counted.
Okay, so the only thing that we're expecting after tonight is the two districts from the Big Island.
Correct.
Okay.
And all provisionals and all that other stuff.
There's probably about 19,000 or so absentee that weren't yet counted in the 11 o'clock. You were saying that the process of counting how many you have left slows down the process of counting the ballot?
It's just an estimate, and we just want to. It's faster if we just count it and give you the real number.
And you think that would be before or after midnight?
No, well, right now it looks like it'll be after midnight, because if we stop at midnight, we won't get it done.
So you hear, if they stop counting at midnight, they don't think they would be done by midnight as the final number. So for Office of Elections telling us that it is likely to be after midnight that they would have anywhere close to a final tally of the ballots they have in.
Now, of course, that doesn't include the ballots that haven't even been cast yet on the Big Island. And Justin, let's take a look at my computer screen here while we give them a little bit of an estimate of what's still yet to come. Besides what they're counting downstairs, they might say, we know it's at least about another 19,000 or so to count just from the mail-in and walk-in ballots alone. Plus, on the Big Island, if we can guess that about 2,000 of those people in the delayed voting districts probably cast their vote among those absentees, then about 6,300 votes will come in at some point in the future. By law, no more than 21 days from now. As they just told us, it'll take them until after midnight to count the 19,000 at least that they have by mail, and probably more. They said if they stopped and counted exactly how much they have left to count, they would have less time to open them and to tell us what's inside of them. What does that mean for the Schatz and Hanabusa race? Again, if we go back to the analysis here. In the 11 p.m. results, Schatz and Hanabusa had a 1788 margin, a slightly tightened margin. Schatz in the lead. On Hawaii Island, Schatz leads, a 371-point margin. Hanabusa takes Kauai and Maui with some margins in the hundreds there too. And a big gap on Oahu. Now, trend lines being what they are, this 20,000 or so that they have to count, will probably follow those same trends because people had already voted, the polls were closed, there was nothing to influence people's votes besides that. The 6,300 or so of those people who are going to vote who haven't already voted early on the Big Island, theirs we can presume from a voting behavior point of view, it might as well be a new race there. Certainly they probably have their preferences, but they've been watching this all night as much as we, and whereas the turnout might have been much lower, had they been expected to go to the polls, they will have a ballot in their hands and will be asked to vote with that in their homes, in their mailboxes, and boy, if they haven't already gotten the impression from tonight, their votes matter so much because it's a whole new ballgame in those two polling places or districts there on the Big Island. Again, about 20,000 absentee votes left to count sometime after midnight. Joe, back to you.
All right, Gina, thank you very much. We're going to wrap up our night of primary election coverage at this point, even though we will bring you